Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer today. Happy Thursday, everybody. I hope your week is going well. We're back at it with another video. We are in the midst of Leo season, so you know what that means. It is time to do my zodiac profile on the sign of Leo. If you like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel, and give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and leave me a comment below and let me know what placements do you have in the sign of Leo. Check out my beginners series, my Astro 101 course. If you want to learn how to read astrology, it is perfect for those of you guys who are wanting to learn the ins and outs of your natal chart and how to read charts for other people. You guys may or may not know, I teach astrology as well as tarot, and I have two different levels on astrology, the 101 and the 201, which is going to be covering transits and other predictive methods. But I thought this would be cool to do. I've been doing this since obviously the beginning of the astrological new year. So we are now going to get on to the topic of Leo because it is your season, Leo. So let's talk all about it. Basically, Leo is the lion. You guys know Leo as the lion, but it is also a fire sign, and it is the fifth sign of the zodiac, and it is a fixed sign. So this means that it is bold, spontaneous. It is very creative, very romantic, I would say. Yeah, romantic is a good sign, a good term for Leo, and they are fixed, which means that they are stubborn or they are set in their ways, as are all of the fixed signs, and they are ruled by the sun. Now, Leo has associations with the fifth house in astrology, and it is a masculine sign because it's a fire sign. And the colors that are associated with Leo would be gold or yellow, some oranges, anything that reflects their warm, vibrant, and joyful nature. And the gemstone associated with Leo is peridot, which represents strength and courage. So those of you guys who have a August birth month, that is your gemstone. But I'm sure many of you guys may be asking, why is the lion a symbol for the sign of Leo? Well, if you guys are into mythology like I am, I'll tell you all about it. So the lion is the symbol for Leo because it's regal, right? Because Leo is known as the kings and the queens of the zodiac. So they may be that. They may also be the stars of the zodiac, depending on who you ask. But basically, the lion is known for its very powerful and confident nature. So just like the lion, Leos are natural-born leaders. They command respect and radiate warmth and generosity with everyone they come into contact with. But in the story of Leo, it's actually connected to the constellation that is linked to the legendary Nemean lion. So this is a creature that's known for its immense strength and for its potential dangers as well. But in the story of Hercules, the Roman version, one of the most famous stories from that is the 12 labors of Hercules. And this is basically a series of seemingly impossible tasks that was set by the king for crimes that were not committed. So the first of these labors was to slay the Nemean lion. Now, the lion was no ordinary beast. It was said that he had a impossible to penetrate kind of skin, or I guess you can call it a skin. And Hercules went armed with a club to go and attack this lion in his lair. But no weapons could work against the lion because of his skin or his hide that was impossible to be able to damage. In a display of sheer brute force, Hercules strangled the lion to death with his bare hands. I know, kind of scary. But to commemorate his victory, Hercules actually skinned the lion and wore his hide as armor as a symbol of his triumph over the mighty beast. So the hide was said to have had magical properties, making Hercules completely safe from any future weapons that would attack him in war. And Zeus, the king of all of the gods, was so impressed by Hercules' feat that he placed the lion among the stars, forming the constellation of Leo. The brightest star in the constellation, Regulus, is said to represent the lion's heart. And so basically the lion became a symbol for the constellation of Leo, a reminder of courage, strength, and triumph of Hercules. It stands as a testament of his spirit and also those who were born under this sign. So that's kind of a cool story. But when we learn about the sun in Leo, or we look at this particular kind of placement, just in general, the sun represents your core identity, right? So this is about vitality and purpose in life. In a natal chart, the sun's placement indicates areas where the individual may shine and express their unique talents and strengths throughout their life. So when you're thinking about Leo and the rulership of the sun, it doesn't just correlate to this particular sign. It's going to be wherever the sun is in your birth chart. And it also represents like your vitality. This is also about sometimes your career. It has connections to, where you're going to be like the most active or the most focused. Because like the solar system, all planets revolve around the sun, right? So kind of the same thing in the natal chart, wherever the sun is, that's going to kind of put a little bit of special importance in how you express some of your creative talents. It's also going to talk about where you're going to be the most successful or feel the most fulfilled. So for example, if your sun is in the 10th house, then you may find fulfillment in career or in public life. But if it's in the 7th, then you might find fulfillment through your partnerships and your relationships with other people. So that's kind of a cool fact about the sun. But more on the characteristics of Leo. So Leo is the 5th sign of the zodiac. It is the 2nd sign that is a fire sign. So it kind of comes after Aries. And they're known obviously for their confidence, their swagger, their warmth, their personalities. They are, like I said, natural leaders because they often take charge in social situations, and they have a knack for really kind of displaying their flair and their dramatic nature. They have very strong sense of self-esteem, and they're proud of their abilities, never shying away from the spotlight. That's something else that they're known for. And like I said, because there is this focus on, when we think about astrology, everything revolving around the sun, sometimes Leos kind of like radiate that kind of persona as well. Like you'll kind of notice that people will kind of just stop and watch them, and like they just have like this sparkle to them where they seem to get attention everywhere they go. And it's so appropriate with them being a fire sign, because I really feel like it's a good representation of their creativity and also their passion. Now, some key traits when I think about the zodiac sign of Leo, obviously number one would be confidence, because they are confident. They're confident in themselves. Leo is a sign that represents, self-love and admiration. So they really do believe in their abilities. They're very charismatic, and they are just amazing when it comes to kind of taking center stage in situations. But they're also very creative. Leo is a sign that's associated with actors and performers and musicians, and it can also have kind of connections to people who can be celebrities or people who can be well known. So they have a flair for being creative, being dramatic, and enjoying themselves throughout art, performance, and other creative pursuits, where they're able to really show off their own personal talents and skills. Now, I love their generous nature. Leos are definitely known for their generosity and their willingness to help other people. Their big bear hugs, and just the fact that they want other people to feel special or important. I think that that's something that I've always kind of really admired about Leos, is that while they love kind of being front and center of everything, they also really do like to inspire other people to recognize and see their own talents and to be confident within themselves. Very ambitious. They have a strong drive to succeed and achieve their goals. Likely that's driven because they want success, right? They want people to see them. They want to feel like they're making, a statement, or, they're kind of getting there, or kind of doing something first, or doing it the best. So that's definitely a quality that you see is ambition. And they're also very loyal. Leo placements in general, not just Leo's the sign, but Leo placements in general are fiercely loyal to their friends and their loved ones, generally pretty protective over them as well. And they have a tendency to be very affectionate. You know, when we think about the lion, you may not necessarily think that, but they can be very affectionate and very sentimental when they want to be. Another thing that comes up for me is pride. You know, they take a great deal of pride in their accomplishments and expect recognition for their efforts, but they also take a great deal of pride in their children and their romantic partners as well. Anybody that is close to them is somebody that they're kind of proud to be with or to live with or to have in their life. So they can also be able to kind of support the people that they love the most and have a great deal of pride for the people in their life. As for their strengths and their weaknesses, so there's definitely, I mean, with all the signs, if you guys have watched this far, you know that I give you the pros and cons. So their strength is definitely, I think, their charisma. Their charisma and their confidence is a major strength. I really feel like most Leos can walk into any situation and they can make their way through anything because they are so darn confident. I also like the fact that they are incredibly passionate. They are, I would say, one of the lovers of the zodiacs. They are a sign that rules flirting and kind of romancing and dating. I love that they are very warm and they are very joyful because they have this focus when it comes to this particular sign to what makes their heart sing. And I love their creativity and as well as their passion. As for some of their weaknesses and challenges that we can see with Leo placements, sometimes Leos get a bad rap for being egotistical or self-centered. Obviously, Leo is the sign that is focused on the self, so sometimes they just can't help it. You know, they are very focused on being able to be hopelessly and gloriously, you know, themselves. But other times, especially when you're seeing like the lower octaves of this particular sign, or you're seeing some hard aspects from other planets, you can see some egotistical tendencies, especially if you see some conjunctions to the sun. That can sometimes happen, and they get called self-centered, but you know that's where their area of focus is. Sometimes Leos can also be a little demanding and overbearing. We can see that because they want what they want, right? So when we think about the sign of Leo, there is such a fixation on, you know, being, you know, the best that sometimes it can be hard to work with them, relate to them, live with them, and there can be some demanding or overbearing tendencies that can come up in their fixed nature. Yes, they can be stubborn and inflexible, but I think I would say that about any of the fixed signs, so I don't feel like they're any different in that sense. But sometimes that's, you know, needing to get out of their own way, obviously because of the themes of this particular sign. They are known for being dramatic. That is not a lie. If you guys have a Leo in your life, you know sometimes you need to kind of hand them like a little mini Oscar or something, but they can be attention seeking. You can see that, and there can definitely be a tendency where that can be over the top to the point where it can sometimes alienate them from other relationships and friendships. Some people also say that Leos can become lazy or unmotivated, and I don't necessarily think that's the case unless they're uninspired. So if we've got like a lazy or unmotivated Leo, usually there's something going on where there is this lack of purpose, which is like impacting their drive and their ability to feel motivated to want to accomplish something or get things done. So that's not a typical trait that we kind of see. Now, when I think about archetypes, because I like to connect all of the signs to different archetypes so we can kind of see them in real life, number one that comes up for me is definitely the king or the queen, okay? And every Leo is probably listening to this laughing because they know that that's the truth. Sometimes there can be this like, I'm the best, I deserve the best mentality. But, you know, Leo is known for being regal. It's known for being the top of the top. So kings and queens, royalty, people who might be considered, you know, that in society, or I think of like modern day times would be like celebrities or people who are just kind of like hard to reach because they are, you know, on a completely different level than most other people. But this is also about being able to, you know, kind of like preside over groups, because we think of Leo being the king and kind of talking to the opposite sign, which would be Aquarius. So that's the masses. So there's definitely something to be said about the king or queen archetype, because they do have a tendency to want to really kind of put on a show, or, you know, get on their soapbox and kind of tell their story, or, you know, be on their stage and demand everybody's attention, and they certainly get it. They're also known as the performer, or I would say the showman, the celebrity. But yeah, performers, the ringleaders, right? The rock star, getting on stage and showing people what they've got, whether that's through theater or movies, or it could be in sports, anything that's competitive, anything that's going to be individuals against other individuals is generally where Leos really shine. They love the attention, obviously, so they do really well in positions where even if they're not in show business, they're able to get up in front of groups of people and kind of talk. So they could do very well in, being a self-employed, person, especially if they work in like the creative arts, or if they do anything that's like performing or being on camera. They do really well giving presentations in front of groups of people, even if it's going to be, in a more kind of like professional, kind of job. But yeah, they love when it comes to like performing and being seen. So definitely the performer, like the rock star, kind of comes to mind for me. But Leo also represents the inner child, and the connection to the ability to be able to play. So if you guys have seen like the sun card in the tarot, you see like the naked little babe that's on the white horse riding, in the sun. There is this sense of being innocent and being playful, and sometimes not knowing any better. That's one quality that I really love about Leos, is their ability to be able to kind of connect in a very heart-centered way, and they know how to play and kind of play make-believe, or kind of like play the part. So definitely the child is a theme that we see in terms of archetypes for Leo. We also see the hero or the heroine. That's a big one. I think that Aries has that sometimes as well. But when I think of like Leo, I think of main character energy, right? I think of the person who's going through, all of the trials throughout like the movie, and you're kind of following along with the plot, and you're seeing the ups and downs, and then eventually they overcome all of the odds, and they end up being successful. Very much the story of the hero. And I think about how it's not limited to just masculine kind of personas as well. It could be feminine also. So I could definitely see that in some storylines, or things that kind of have women as like a main character, because it's less about the gender. It's more about their ability to shine and being able to accomplish their goals. And then finally, the artist. So obviously art comes in many forms, but when I think about Leo, I think about them really wanting to put their art out to be seen, right? Maybe Taurus is going to be more the sculptor, the potter, somebody who's building something that's going to be more practical, or something that, they're going to be able to kind of like utilize. But Leo is definitely a sign that says like, look at what I created, and whether it's their family, or it's going to be a painting, or it's going to be a business, there's definitely this sense of wanting to create something so it can be admired. And that's a quality that we'll see throughout some of the other placements in Leo. But definitely I see Leo as definitely one of the zodiac signs that I would consider an artist. Now for health and wellness for Leos, Leo rules two specific parts of the body. It rules the heart as well as the spine. So obviously these are going to be important things health-wise that you guys are going to want to take care of. You need to be mindful of heart health. That includes like anything connecting to blood pressure, anything connecting to making sure that you're eating heart healthy, that you're monitoring anything in that department, and you're taking really good care of your spine and your back. Regular exercise, a balanced diet, and stress management is really important for Leos to be able to maintain their vitality. Because the sun is connected with Leo, it's about your life force. So it's also a good idea to make sure that you're taking care of your immune system and getting a little bit of sunshine. Now, when we look at the difference between a Leo sun, moon, or rising, I feel like this is one of the rising signs that I can always spot. Hands down, this is one of the easier ones to kind of see. So let's talk a little bit about the rising sign, and then we'll get into the Leo sun and the Leo moon. All right, so with the Leo rising, first off, the one thing that I noticed just in terms of their presence, not even their appearance, but their presence, is that they're very confident, they're charismatic, they have a very strong presence, they love to be, in the spotlight. They can be very dramatic and theatrical in how they kind of move or dress. I also find that they tend to have really great hair. It can be big hair, it could be thicker, it could be wavy, but usually Leo risings I can see with their mane. And sometimes they will also have like a little bit of like a cat face. Sometimes they'll have a little bit of a flatter nose, and you'll notice that their eyes are a little bit more almond shaped, or they're kind of at an angle, kind of cat-like. And they have a tendency to really like gold or warmer colors. So I'll notice that, you know, like a Leo rising will wear a lot of gold bangles, or sometimes you'll see them in cat print. Yes, you can see that. Bigger hair, and also just anything that's going to have a little bit of like a bolder kind of style when it comes to the metals that they're wearing in terms of like jewelry and stuff. Anyway, I also feel like this is a sign that is very generous and like warm when you meet them. So when you're around them, they can be like very kind of welcoming, and they really like being admired. This is something that I notice. And the rising Leos, they also walk with a bit of a swagger. You see that with Leo suns, you see that with Mars in Leo as well. But definitely I feel like Leo risings, they kind of have a little bit of a swagger when they walk. Like you can just like see that they're just like, you know, filled with confidence. Anyway, when I look at the Leo sun placements, so obviously the sun is at home in the sign of Leo. This makes their personality very visible. So sometimes it can be a lot of what you see is what you get. Confident, charismatic. That's something that's like a dad giveaway with Leo suns. And they also are they're very focused when it comes to their success. That's something that I have found. Like there is a strong sense of self. They're proud of their abilities. And also they have a tendency sometimes, these ones are a little bit more stubborn as the Leo suns. These ones also can have some challenges sometimes with like some egotistical stuff, but still they're still very very generous and very loyal in terms of their relationships. Now, the Leo sun for me, I feel like this is somebody who's always going to be in the mix, whether they're more visible in their friend group or they're more noticed when they go out, or, you know, when they're at work. You just see them kind of like taking the lead when it comes to things. And so it's not as obvious as a Leo rising, but when you see them in their element, that's when they're really kind of like doing their thing, and you can kind of see that Leo energy come through their sun. Now, Leo moon people, so this is taking the kind of the expression of Leo, and you're putting it through the moon, which is going to be more emotional, it's going to be more sensitive, and this is putting the moon in a fire sign. So in my opinion, the Leo moons I think are the most dramatic. I don't know, you guys tell me. I think they're the most dramatic, but they can also be the most passionate, they can be the most creative, and I feel like these ones definitely have a strong need for love and attention. I find that these ones can be a little bit more attention seeking. They definitely need to feel appreciated and valued and admired. And they are also very loyal and protective of their family, because the moon represents their family. So they can be very proud of where they come from or their heritage, or very strongly kind of connected to their roots and, you know, their background. I feel like the Leo moon also has a tendency to have a bit of a more creative flair, especially when it comes to how they're decorating their home or maybe like their clothes. There can definitely be a little bit more of a flair when it comes to some of that stuff, okay? Now, when we talk about the sun in Leo, this is obviously the sun is, you know, where it's most comfortable, so it's in its domicile in this sign. So it basically means that it's able to really work with the energy best. It's able to express the energy and influence the most directly and in a powerful way. But not all signs are friendly with this particular planet. So when we think about the sun, it's going to do its best in Leo, but it's going to be in its fall in Aquarius because it's in the opposite sign of its domicile. So when the sun is in Aquarius, it's in its fall, and this basically means that this is a position of weakness for the sun because it's not as easily able to express its energy in this particular sign. Aquarius is traditionally ruled by Saturn, and modern day ruler is Uranus. It's an air sign, so it's associated with innovation, change, rebellion. And you know, when you put the sun in this sign, it struggles to find its identity sometimes, or it struggles to kind of shine as brightly as it does in Leo. It can kind of get lost in the crowd, right? Now, the sun is exalted in the sign of Aries, which means this is the sign that it performs very well in. It has a little bit of extra strength and awareness in this sign. Aries is another fire sign, and it's ruled by Mars, so it has associations with courage and initiative and action. So when the sun is in the sign, it's able to kind of express itself in a way that is very powerful and focused. So it's going to get a little bit of a boost here. That means that when the sun is in Libra, it's in its detriment, okay? So obviously the sun does not perform as well in air signs. That's what we're learning. It's in the opposite sign of Aries, so it's considered to be in a position of weakness, and it's not able to express its energy as effectively in this sign because Libra is ruled by Venus and it's associated with balance and harmony in relationships. While the sun in this particular sign, like it's going to struggle to assert itself as strongly as it does in Aries because so much of the identity, so much of the focus is wrapped up in relationships. It's not in itself like it would be in Leo. It's not in its independence or courage like it would be in Aries. It's really kind of identifying as a part of a relationship. So planets behave differently in different signs. When we take a look at the planets, the other planets through Leo, so if you have any other planets in Leo, it may not be your sun, moon, or rising. I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what that means. And so essentially, when you think of the zodiac, right, or your natal chart, I personally believe that houses trump signs. I feel like if a planet is in a house, it's going to put extra focus on that particular house. The sign is how it expresses itself. So I'm going to talk to you guys first about Leo, planets in Leo, and then I'll talk to you about planets in the 5th house, and we'll talk about the suns in the different houses as well. So Mercury is about communication. Mercury is about how we read, write, learn, how we travel. It's going to be obviously about how we kind of assess information. So when you put Mercury in the sign of Leo, it's going to make communication more dramatic and more expressive. They're going to have a flair with words, and they're very kind of theatrical. They can be very confident when they communicate, very creative, and there is definitely a sense of really being focused on what they think. Remember, because Leo is kind of the I love, I am kind of energy. So when you put Mercury in that sign, they're not going to have a problem telling you what they think, what they love, and they can be very creative. Now, Venus in Leo. So we put Venus, the planet of love and relationships and diplomacy and style and beauty, in the sign of Leo. It makes love and relationships very dramatic, but very passionate. These are the lovers of the zodiac, guys. Probably one of my favorite placements would be Venus in Leo. And, I think it's just because people with this placement are so passionate. They're so creative. And I always call this the Tinkerbell placement. So you guys know how when Tinkerbell wouldn't get enough attention, she would faint. Okay, so that's pretty much Venus and Leo. Like, they really need a playmate, they need a lover, they need lots of drama and, bold kind of romantic gestures. They need a lot of attention, and they're very warm, they're very generous, and they're very affectionate. They'll kind of like paw at you a little bit if you guys have ever had a run-in with a Venus and Leo. Mars in Leo, another really bold kind of dynamic placement. This is taking Mars, the planet of passion and conflict and war and action, and it's putting it into this particular sign. So this has a lot of swagger. This has a lot of confidence. This has a lot of ambition, a strong desire to succeed. These are leaders. I've seen a lot of leaders with this placement. I feel like Mars and Leo, especially Mars and Leo men, I've noticed they kind of walk with their chest out. If you've ever seen a Mars and Leo walk, they're just very confident. They walk kind of chest forward, They can also be excellent drummers. I've seen a lot of drummers with Mars, either in the 5th house or Mars in Leo. They're really into dance and percussion. That can be something else that they can be into. And also sports stars sometimes have this placement because they get recognized, right, because of their confidence and their skills when it comes to anything active. Now, Jupiter in Leo, we're putting the sign of growth and abundance and luck into the sign of Leo. So this is going to basically mean that they make their own luck, right? They may love gambling. They may love traveling. They may also find that they have big wins throughout their life or major successes that kind of come through education, travel, or creativity. I found that people who have Jupiter in Leo also have like a love for culture, and sometimes they make really, really excellent lawyers or judges. I've seen some people who have this placement and then get a lot of recognition for that. And these are also people who can be well known for their teaching, their publishing, books that they've written and stuff like that as well. All right, so then we have Saturn in Leo. So putting Saturn in the sign of Leo. So basically Saturn is known for structure and discipline. It's about being intensely focused and creating some kind of, border or foundation or kind of commitment in your life. So I find that people who have this placement, they take a little bit longer sometimes to fully mature and like learn to love themselves for how they are, right? There can sometimes be some delays with dating or with confidence, and really needing to learn how to believe in themselves and developing a very strong sense of self, right? And really kind of developing their will. In the end, though, I feel like it ends up making them very strong because they end up really knowing who they are. And they can have karma revolving around lessons in relationships or, sometimes challenges with dating or with children. That could be something else that can come up with Saturn in this sign. Now, if you put Uranus in the sign of Leo, okay, so Uranus is a planet that's about innovation, change, shocks, and surprises. I have found this makes for some really, really, really innovative and creative artists. I have found that this is also placements of people who like to party, they like to have a good time. Uranus in Leo can also be about people who express themselves in different and kind of like eccentric ways. Now, what about Neptune in Leo? Okay, so Neptune in Leo is basically about taking their dreams, their inspirations. It can also be about their spirituality and showing it in a very dramatic and creative way. This can make for some exceptional filmmakers, musicians, artists. This can also be really amazing for being able to take their visions and being able to, turn it into something like in physical form, because Neptune is not necessarily physical. They can also be very much interested in anything that's like stardom or kind of fandom or anything that's kind of like Hollywood-esque. They really can be fixated and in love with the idea of, like playing a role or being seen as somebody who's kind of like in the spotlight. And then finally, we have our Pluto in Leos. Okay, I know there's some of you guys that watch this. But Pluto in Leo, so you're taking the planet of change, transformation, and intensity, and you're putting it in the sign of Leo. So people with this placement are, I have found, very confident, ambitious, and have a very strong sense of self. But they're also learning in this lifetime to evolve past the ego, learn to let go of the idea that it's just about them. They'll go through many personal transformations throughout their life. There is this sense of evolving and moving past feeling like you need to be fixated on being the best or being the king or being the queen, right? I know we've got some people who have Pluto in Leo. I think you guys have been rocked a little bit in recent years with Saturn opposing your Plutos and Uranus squaring it, and now you've got Pluto coming in for your Pluto opposition. So it's interesting just to watch this from my perspective with some of my clients, because Pluto represents major change and transformation. Now it's in Aquarius. So with your guys' Pluto opposition that you're going through, so much about what's changing with the collective, and we're starting to see that, collective people are saying, hey, the wealth inequality, this isn't fair. Or, hey, the situation that's going on, with politics, this isn't fair. So we're starting to see kind of the tide turn and some challenges to the Pluto and Leo generation, primarily because we're going through just like such upheaval, I think, with Pluto and Aquarius. So what you guys are learning basically is that you don't have to be the sole leader. It's not just about you guys. It's going to be about a whole collective group, and this constant reworking of your relationship maybe that you have to fear and transformation. And lots of personal transformation comes with this placement, regardless of where you have it in your chart. All right, so what about if you have your North or your South node in Leo? Okay, so your North node obviously is kind of what we're working towards, what we're evolving towards. It might seem out of reach or challenging. And if you believe in reincarnation, we came into this lifetime to learn how to do these things. So the North Node in Leo really encourages you to develop your confidence, to develop creativity, to learn how to be a leader, maybe to have children or partake in gambling or like love affairs. Really, it's about learning how to take chances and how to have playtime. But the South Node in Leo, this represents your past life and where you've been. So if you have a South Node in Leo, you know, it's possible that in the past you were royal. It's possible in the past you were super self-focused or self-consumed. Maybe it means that, you know, you were in the spotlight and you were recognized for your talents, or you were a creator or a performer. And so now in this lifetime, your North Node is in Aquarius, and you're here to learn how to kind of embrace more of those North Node and Aquarius tendencies, which is kind of working with the collective, giving back, and doing some kind of like humanitarian effort for other people. Now, what if you have planets in your 5th house? Okay, so you may not have anything in Leo. You're like, none of this applies to me. But you may have planets in your 5th house, and it may kind of represent some of the same themes. So Leo has this natural association with the 5th house because it's the 5th sign. This is the house of self-expression. It's about romance. It's about fun and pleasure and joy and gambling and dating and self-employment and kids and all that stuff. It's about bars and casinos and theaters, you know, all of the places that like a Leo would want to be. So when we see planets in this particular house, it's going to show me something about your hobbies, your romance, you know, how you like to have fun and how you like to create, what you're most passionate about. So if you have your sun in the 5th house, it will have similar characteristics to the sun in Leo. However, keep in mind, it's gonna really depend on what sign it is, because it's gonna be expressed in a different way, okay? So if you have your sun in the 5th house, this suggests you have a really strong desire for self-expression and creativity. You might be a playboy or a playgirl. You might be somebody who has a natural talent for arts and performance. You're very charismatic. You enjoy being the center of attention. You just love everything that could be 5th house related. So having fun, taking chances, all that stuff. If your moon is in the 5th house, though, that's a very different energy because the sun is solar. You can see that. It's going to be very active, but the moon is not as obvious. So if the moon is in the 5th house, this indicates a deep emotional connection to creative pursuits. It might be something you're more private about. It can be about finding comfort and joy in artistic expression. You might be more likely to have a nurturing kind of personality and have a strong desire to create or share your work. This is also about emotional connection maybe that you have to romantic partners or even children. It might even be symbolic of having a mom who was a creator or an artist or a performer. That's possible as well. Now, if you have Mercury in the 5th house, okay, so we're taking the planet of communication and putting it in the 5th house. This is somebody who's generally, they have quick wit and a talent for, communication. You may excel in writing, speaking, or other forms of expression, and you're likely to be curious and enjoy learning new things. You may also write or express yourself in a creative or romantic way, so that's possible as well. If you have Venus in the 5th house, okay, so Venus in the 5th house, this is the planet of love and beauty. It indicates a love for romance, a love for harmony, a love for children, for anything that's going to be playtime related. So you may have a natural talent for the arts and a strong appreciation for aesthetics, and you're likely to be, like I said, romantic, enjoy the pleasures of life. You could be somebody who can have lots of opportunities when it comes to the dating department, and you definitely like taking chances when it comes to love and relationships. Now, if you have Mars in the 5th house, this is the planet of action, right? And sometimes conflict, and it can be about physical stuff. So there should be a strong desire for action and adventure if you have Mars in the 5th house. You may be very passionate, very energetic. You might be very competitive as well. And you may likely enjoy sports or games or other activities that involve risk taking. So this could be like, you know, any kind of form of competitive sports, especially if it's like stuff you can gamble on. That might be something you like. It depends on the sign, but I could also see this being a placement of somebody who is just very active when it comes to their hobbies. Like they really enjoy, you know, partaking in a hobby that they kind of, you know, participate in regularly. If you have Jupiter in the 5th house, okay, so this is the planet of expansion and abundance. If this is in the 5th house, it really brings a love for learning and a sense of optimism. And I think that this is also about that particular individual having like a broad range of interests and talents for either teaching or inspiring other people. Now, you're likely very generous with sharing your knowledge or sharing, you know, your information or even sharing your talents with the world. You can also be really funny. So Jupiter being in the 5th house is like a great placement for like a comedian or maybe somebody who's like an actor or an actress, because you can definitely get a lot of recognition for like your wit. Now, what if you have Saturn in the 5th house? So Saturn, Lord of Karma, in the 5th house of relationships, romance, creativity. This is going to be more about bringing Saturn in and teaching you a sense of responsibility and discipline in 5th house matters. You may take your creative pursuits very seriously and feel like you need to prove yourself. It can also be about being patient and hardworking when it comes to creative jobs, employment. You may feel like you have a bit of like a late start or you're like a late bloomer when it comes to dating, or there can be some limitation or karma revolving around self-expression or potentially even children. Now, if you have Uranus in your 5th house, this is going to bring a strong desire for freedom and originality, especially being yourself, because the 5th house is self-expression. So you might have a unique approach to creative expression, or like maybe even a unique style. These people are usually very innovative, unconventional, and party animals. Uranus in the 5th house is definitely a placement for a party animal. Neptune in the 5th house can suggest a dreamy and imaginative nature. An individual with this placement may have a talent for fantasy or abstract art, sometimes film and cinema as well, but you're likely to be very sensitive and very empathic, and like you can kind of pick stuff up off of people, whether that's your friends, your romantic partners. And also I feel like there is like a really strong draw towards like art and mysticism, or like I said, it can be photography or it can be kind of working with film. And also I've seen this placement for a lot of people who are who play instruments. So you could be like a musician and have Neptune in the 5th house, play guitar, maybe sing, or you play piano, whatever. But definitely these people are more prone to having a particular instrument or form of art that they like to work with. And then finally, Pluto in the 5th house. So Pluto in the 5th house suggests a deep and transformative approach to creative expression. This individual may have a powerful presence and a desire to create something meaningful, and they're likely to be very intense and very passionate about their romantic partners or their children. They can also become wildly obsessed with some of their hobbies and like really fixated on whatever it is that they like to do for their pastime. Now, what if you have your North or South node in the 5th house? Now, it may not be in Leo, but it's going to have similar themes. So if your North node's in the 5th house, this is suggesting that you're on the path of self-expression and creativity in this lifetime. The individual may need to learn to express themselves authentically and share their talents with the world. You're likely to find joy and fulfillment in your own creative pursuits. This can be relationships, having a kid, or having your own business. Now, if you have the South node in the 5th house, this suggests that in a past life, creativity and self-expression was your main focus. You may have a natural talent for the arts and a strong desire to create because that's your South node, but you're learning to kind of balance your creative pursuits with other areas of your life and learn how to share some of what you create with other people, so there isn't as much sole focus on your creativity. It's more about how you're joining with groups and networks of other people because your North node is in the 11th. Now let's talk a little bit about the sun in the various houses, because the sun rules obviously the sign of Leo. I thought it would be good just to give you guys a few words on the sun through the various 12 houses. Now, keep in mind, like I said, it's going to express itself based off of its zodiac sign. But I still think it's important to kind of touch on this. And not a lot of people know that the sun in, your natal chart is going to shine a light on where you're going to be primarily the most focused. Okay. So if you have your sun in the first house, think about how I said the sun in Aries is very strong. The sun in the first house is a very strong placement as well, even if it's, not in Leo or not in Aries, because these are people who walk in and they just demand the center of attention in the room. You just see them. They're very confident. They're very independent. They're kind of on a mission, right? So there are definitely people who are going to be more confident and self-assured. This is something that I have noticed about first house suns. Now, if your sun is in the second house, this is taking on kind of that persona and the archetype of what would be the second house, which is Taurus. Also, if you have your sun beneath the horizon, you're much more likely to look like your sun sign. Okay, so it may not be, let me say this again. If you have your sun beneath the horizon, you're going to look more like the house than you are the sign. Okay, that's how I say it. You're going to look more like the house than the sun. So, for example, if your sun is in the second house, and let's say it's in the sign of Libra, right? But, it's in the second house, you may take on more characteristics of the sign of Taurus because it's the second house, right? So you might look more like that. Anyway, sun in the second house, valuing material possessions and financial security. Why? Because the second house is about resources. It's about money, possessions, things that you're able to buy and acquire, things that you collect. It's also going to be about value. So if your sun's in the second house, you're going to be really focused on what can I obtain? What can I buy? What can I collect? What can I consume? And it can very much be a life where you're very focused on the financial side of things and financial security as well, because this is about paying a lot of attention and putting a lot of work and emphasis into being able to provide. All right. Sun in the third house. So this is going to create a very curious mind, very communicative, because the third house has connections and associations with Gemini. So even if that's not the sign, the sun in the third house is generally pretty chatty, little fidgety. They're very focused on communication. They might be more prone to learning languages, going on road trips. They might be more interested in gadgets and anything that kind of deals with expression in the form of words, right? The sun in the fourth house. Okay, so the fourth house sun is going to be very family oriented generally, or emotionally connected. These people can be very intuitive, very sensitive, and there can be a really strong kind of connection to the past or even to your roots. Now, the fourth house has connections traditionally to Cancer, so it can be about your emotions, it can be about your ancestors, it can be about real estate and property here as well. If your sun's in the fifth house, obviously we know that's creative, that's passionate, because the sun is very confident in that particular house. It may express itself in a different energy, but generally these are creatives, performers, entertainers, people who like to kind of have a good time. If your sun's in the sixth house, this is going to kind of take on that archetype of Virgo. So the sixth house is going to be about hardworking, detail-oriented, having a routine, focusing on health, focusing on habits. Now, how your sun is aspected and what sign that's in is going to determine if they're good or bad habits, right? We could say that with all of the houses, but the sixth house, I have found that they need to have order and routine, just bottom line. That's really important to them. And obviously they're always hardworking, because this is a house of hard work, dedication, right? And it's also about health and correcting things or kind of fixing or healing things. So these can also be people who provide some kind of specialized service, or maybe they're in healthcare, or maybe they work with animals, because these are all connected to the sixth house. Now, if your sun is in the seventh house, it takes kind of on that persona or that kind of archetype of Libra. And the seventh house is going to be about partnerships and relationships, cooperating with other people, right? And it's not just romantic relationships. It could be clients, it could be working with a business partner, it could be, connecting to the public, it could be selling something. So the seventh house does have this kind of connection to others and being with others and collaborating with others. But it's also, I think, about cooperation. So I've seen like mediators, I've seen lawyers, I have seen managers, all have pretty significant placements in the seventh house. Now, if your sun's in the 8th house, this is going to kind of take on the kind of persona more of Scorpio. And the 8th house is going to be about what is intense, what's transformative. You know, the sun has a hard time shining in the 8th house. So these can sometimes be very private people and people who, you know, are a little bit more vulnerable and they don't always want to be seen. Very interested in joint resources, metaphysics, the occult, spirituality, you know, the afterlife, some more taboo kind of jobs as well can kind of come in with the 8th house, and a natural tendency to want to do research or wanting to dig deeper into the bigger meaning of life. And then the sun in the 9th house takes on the kind of like the persona of like a Sagittarius. And this is going to be about learning, traveling, culture, experiences, philosophy. This can also be about higher education, publishing, learning. I see a lot of teachers. I see a lot of mentors. Sometimes I see some judges. Sometimes I see some cops with this placement. I'm trying to think what else. I've seen a lot of like professors with 9th house placements, especially the sun, or people who work in publishing, or people who travel a lot, or maybe they do some kind of work also in marketing. That's something else that I've seen in the 9th house. Now, sun in the 10th house, obviously we know it's kind of like the tip-top part of the chart. So this is going to put the emphasis on being seen, so you can be more visible. If you have your sun conjunct the MC or in the 10th house, you can be in a much more kind of public job position. Very ambitious, very goal-oriented, responsible, a little bit more Saturn-like, where there's like a tendency to want to manage or kind of handle or kind of dominate things. And somebody who has a great deal of focus when it comes to their long-term goals and plans. Now, the sun in the 11th house can also be a bit of a party animal, very social, usually throwing events, attending events, connecting with people, wanting to be among, you know, like their friends and their allies. They can be very focused on humanitarian things. They can also be very focused on things that are kind of tech and futuristic, and things that can be kind of connected to like the internet and kind of connecting the masses. But these can be people who run like, you know, events, or people who, you know, bring people together and sit on boards or are part of some kind of collective group. And they do have a tendency to be more idealistic and kind of thinking about the future and wanting to be innovative, you know, and yeah, very, very goal oriented as well, because this also has like a connection to Saturn. And then finally, if you have your sun in the 12th house, the 12th house obviously is hidden. So it is, you know, behind the first house. So it does represent kind of collective karma. You could say this has connections to past life. Very spiritual, reflective, introspective, kind of hermity. But these are also people who are very sensitive. It's got kind of like a Pisces vibe when the sun's in the 12th house. There can be a tendency to kind of want to hide away and shield yourself off from the world, or you may feel like you're in a fishbowl sometimes as well. I always tell 12th housers, like, you have to put yourself out there, you know, otherwise you're going to think that, you know, there's like a barrier between you and the rest of the world, because sometimes you're hiding. But these are also very sensitive placements, and people sometimes who have like a strong connective to their spiritual side or their religious side. And often they really enjoy having time kind of behind the scenes or doing some kind of work behind the scenes. And they don't always need to be in the spotlight. So that's kind of an interesting placement for the 12th house sun, because generally the sun wants to be seen. So it can be a little bit harder to be seen there. And sometimes these are the placements of people who don't quite get the recognition for all of the hard work that they kind of put into their jobs or anything that they're kind of working on. So I hope that that's helpful in giving you guys some insight, a little bit of love for the Leos during Leo season. Obviously, we're going to continue this series. We'll be back next month and we'll talk about Virgo when we get into some of the Virgo transits. So if you're a Leo, sun, moon, or rising, give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Leave me some comments below and let me know what Leo placements or 5th house placements you have. I'd love to hear all about it. Don't forget to click the link in the website description below. You can go to beyondtheveiltarot.com. You guys can book a one-on-one reading with me if you'd like to, or check out my courses if you'd like to learn astrology. You can catch me here tomorrow. We're going to be doing live tarot readings at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Check out the link in the description or in the community tab. It's going to be posted soon if you would like to get a reading. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you subscribe, and I will catch you guys all back here next time. Take care.